Alright, hello once again. Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College Application and Website Development Program, and in particular the AWD 1112 Java Programming, Applied Programming with Java class, I've been going over a series of video presentations based on the textbook for the class. There's actually two books, but I'm doing the first book now, Java Quick Syntax Reference, and I'm up to Chapter 10 on classes. Now, I started on this last time, and I had a few problems, so I'm, for lack of better words, going to try it again. So I'm going to get rid of this. Okay. And hopefully is that getting rid of it? Oh boy, delete. Yeah, this should go bye-bye. No, hopefully it will. How's that? So, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to see if I can create a new Java class right there. I'm going to call this class, even though there's a myRectangle, I'm going to call it myRectangle 2. It'll be a class. It's not a superclass. It's in my package. It'll be public. Should be fine. So there it is. Now I'm going to literally just grab all of the code. Don't know why that's still there. But I'm going to grab all of the code that's right out of the book here. I'm going to format it a little nicer than it is. In fact, let's give these better names. We'll call this int length and int width. All right, and then we'll have a get area, which instead of returning x times y, because those are, let's face it, crummy names, we'll return length times width. All right, all my errors are gone. That should be it. Semicolon. Now all my errors are gone. And for now, I'm just going to do a file save all. There we go. Like I said, that's still there. I'm not sure why. Oh, we'll see. So I'm going to come back to my class. Interesting. I now have a my class 2. Thought I had a my class. Well, I've got a my class 2 and a myRectangle 2. Okay. Maybe I had that all the time. So create an instance of myRectangle 2. So myRectangle 2. Let's just call it myRect. What do they call it in the book? They call it R, which is fine. R equals new myRectangle 2. So what am I doing here? I'm instantiating or creating an object of type rectangle. All right. Now this class, to be honest with you, this myRectangle 2 class does not have much stuff in it. All right. For instance, it does not have what is referred to as a constructor. I don't know if we'll get into that in this class or if it will be in one of the next classes. We'll see. All right. So, sorry. I've been doing a bunch of work on the side here. So, accessing object members. All right. I've already got this. Again, I changed the names. Now, in main, they want us to do this. myRectangle R equal new R, that's fine. R dot, so I'm going to have length and width. And then we will go into the constructor, which is a good thing. So I'm in here now. I want to get back to my class 2. And right in here, again, I'm going to get errors. Don't worry about it. R dot length. r dot width. And again, I could have left the names that they had. I just thought the names were not good. Int, let's call it, oh, that's fine, z equals r dot get area. Now, if I do come in and say s out, the length is plus length, and we gotta say r dot length plus the width is plus r dot width plus the area is plus r dot, notice we're going to call a routine here, get area. Now we could have just said z, but I want to make sure that it's working. So get area. Alright, let's try it. Take it for a spin, see what it does. File, save all, and let's, I don't know what's going on there, but let's run it. I'm getting something that's invalid here. Occurrence is found in comments. Oh, it went away. So the length is 10, the width is 5, the area is 50. Now, just to show you, I could have actually put the area in here in two different ways. So I could have come in here, don't worry about it, this will be fixed in 1 second. One too many parens. Alright, so I could have said here the width is z. Could have done that as well. So I should have, I'm sorry, that should say area. So I should have twice in there, the area is 50. Let's double check. The length is 10, the width is 5, the area is 50, the area is 50. So you might say, well, why, if you can do it that way, why do it this way? What I am doing is I'm pushing all the work off into the other class. Main is going to become what's referred to as a driver. So I really shouldn't do it this way. Just because you can do something a certain way doesn't necessarily mean you want to or you should. Now, going back to this class does not have what's called a constructor. A constructor is a method with the same name as the class. So it looks like this. Public, and a constructor cannot return anything. My rectangle 2, and I lied to you. Right now there is a constructor, for lack of better words, it's an invisible constructor that's being called, and that's it right there. It's not doing anything. But what we can do is we can say, hey, if we create a triangle, a rectangle, and this rectangle has nothing in it, we can give it values. So let's say this dot length, we'll get over to talk about the this in a bit, and we don't even need it, but equals, let's say 20. Oops. And this dot width equal 50. All right, notice we didn't get any error. It's giving us here, it says click or press to enter. More assignments to field, see definition. I could set up the area now, I'm not going to do that. So I've got those. Why did I do that? Well, now I can come in, notice when I call this, I don't need these variables anymore. All right? But instead of getting rid of them, what I'm going to do for right now is I'm just going to comment them out. All right? Let's run the program again. File, save all. We should not get any errors. The length is 20, the width is 50, the area is 1,000. And as you can guess, it's getting those values from right here. Now, another thing I can do here is, since a constructor is just a method, I can do what's called overload that method. So I'm going to come in here. Don't worry, the error will go away momentarily. Whoopsie. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, now I expect an int in here that's called L and another int in here that's called W. And I'm going to say this dot length equals L, this dot width equals W. So now I've got two constructors. So I can also call this, and I can pass in two integers when I call it. Why does that matter? Well, I've now got this one right here. All right. And I don't need this int z get area. I don't need that at all. I don't need these r dot length and this r dot width anymore. But I'm going to call my rectangle 2. We'll call it S equals new my rectangle 2. But now I'm going to pass it in a couple of values. 8 and 8. All right. And I'm going to print out the same exact stuff that I printed out before. First, I'm going to put in a couple of line breaks. All right. But now I'm going to say the length is S dot length. The width is S dot width. And finally, the area is S dot area. Now, if I did this correctly and didn't make any mistakes, this right here is R, which is our what's called our no arg constructor. So that one should call this one. It should set the length to 20. It should set the width to 50. And for the get area, it should multiply 20 by 50 to give us 1,000. With the second one, S, I am setting the length to 8 and the width to 8. Let's make it something else. Let's make it 25, not 20. That's good. So that should call this constructor, and it should set the length equal to what I passed in, which was 8, and the width equal to what I passed in, which was 20, I think, whatever it was, and then do the get area, which multiplies the two. So again, file, save all, run it, and you'll notice 20, 50, 1,000, 8, 20, 160. So what you've just learned how to do is you've learned how to create multiple objects and have each of those objects call a different constructor. I could overload this constructor as many times as I want, as long as what goes in there in the signature in the parentheses is of a different type. Let's jump back into the text here. So I just explained and demonstrated constructors to you, hopefully. Here's the this keyword. This is a special keyword that means the current instance of the class. What does that mean? Let's go back and look here. If I were to have called in this second constructor, I call this L, that's that. I call this W, and that's that. Since L and W are not these names, I really don't need the word this in there. However, had I called these length and width, which is totally valid. All right, notice now I get the error. Then I would need the word this. If I left the word this, if I left this off, it would grab that copy and copy it to itself. Now that may not totally make sense right now, and that's totally fine. All right? Some Java programmers always use the word this, like I did here, regardless of what they call it. Others just say, I don't want to use the word this, so these variables right here, which are copies of these variables, just don't make them the same thing. Make them L and W, which will have to make this L and this W. All right, so either one of those ways will work. I also just showed you constructor overloading. Here they've got 3 different constructors. All right. I showed you initial field values. I showed you the default constructor. So you've seen all this stuff now. Now, notice null. The built-in constant null is used to represent an uninitialized object. It can only be assigned to objects and not to variables of primitive types. The equal to operator can be used with that as well. Now, technically, just so you're aware of this, when I did this, technically, before I actually called this, okay, I could do this as 2 lines. Now I can say it like that. Notice I don't get an error. But right now, since I have not, this is declaring my rectangle to variable R. This is initializing it. So if I declare it and initialize it on 2 lines, now this has a value of null, which means it has no value. There may be a time when you want to do that. Again, it always depends upon the circumstances. All right? All right. Default values, it says the default value of an object is null. For primitives, the default, it depends on where you go and declare something, but typically numeric types are 0. Chars are the Unicode 0 \0000. Booleans are false. I don't like to rely on default anything. So quite often, what I will do is even if something has a default value, I will still set it anyway. All right. I think the last thing that's discussed in this chapter, is the garbage collector. Now, the garbage collector for Java runs under the operating system. Now, I'm going to give you my definition of this. You may have even heard it from me already. I don't know. You may get it. You may not get it. Back when I was your age and I was a student at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, in my late teens and early 20s, I oftentimes took courses that were on different sides of the campus. All right? And I'd park my car someplace for 2 hours, when my class went on. I'd get done, I'd run to my car, I'd move to the other side of the campus, etc. Every once in a while, I'd have classes that were close enough that I didn't have to change my parking spot. However, after 2 hours, typically, what would happen was where I parked, there were no meters. So a, quote, meter maid, unquote, would come around, and he or she would mark with a piece of chalk a mark under my tire. Then they would come back a little later, and if that car was still there and that mark was still there, I'd get a parking ticket. So why am I telling you that? Well, what they were doing when they were putting that mark under my car is they were sending a signal to the system about some kind of a condition. If I'm using, let's assume that this is my my program, the one I just showed you, and I've got a big program here and I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff. All right? But now, so I'm just going to put a comment in here that says, do a bunch of stuff here. Now that I've done that bunch of stuff, I don't need R anymore. I don't need this anymore. So I come in here and I go R equals null. Notice I don't get any error. There's no error there. All right. What it does is it sends a signal to the operating system to let the garbage collector know that there is no longer a reference to R, an object reference, which is a reference to the address of where it lives. So it tells it the next time it comes through, and I think that's like it marks it. So the next time it comes through after that, if it's still null, it knows that it can release the memory that's associated with R. I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. May or may not make a whole boatload of sense, but that's okay. So that's it for talking about classes. Let's come back and talk about static.